Welcome back to another edition of The Explainer. I am so pumped you're here today because we're about to literally crack a secret code. If you've ever studied English, or honestly, even if you're a native speaker, you already know English is just packed with phrasal verbs. They're everywhere. And usually, they're taught as this massive, frustrating list of random vocab words you just have to memorize. But today, we are completely flipping that script. We're going to decode the hidden, actually incredibly visual logic behind two of the absolute most common words in the English language, down and over. So, how exactly do two tiny words completely change everything we say? Think about it for a second. You can look at something, right? But if you look over something, the entire meaning completely shifts. You can shut a door, but if a business is shut down, well, that's entirely different. These tiny little particles, down and over, they aren't just frustrating grammar rules designed to test your memory. No way. They actually share this brilliant underlying physical logic. And the best part? Once you see the physical metaphor, you never have to memorize them again. You just get it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our source material for today. And yeah, I know, at first glance, it looks, well, like a super dense dictionary-style page straight out of a textbook. It's packed with text, columns, tiny font, the whole shebang. But hey, don't worry, you don't need to squint or try to read ahead here. Think of this as our grammatical roadmap. What we're going to do together is visually deconstruct all this dense information, just step by step. We'll isolate the concepts, map them out clearly, so you can see the brilliant structure that's actually hiding right underneath the surface. Section 1. The gravity of down. From literal to metaphorical. Okay, let's take a purely literal, physical action. Imagine saying, we'll have to chop or cut down that old tree. It's dead. When you cut through a tree, what happens? Gravity takes over, right? It moves in the direction of the ground. It literally falls down. But now contrast that with this sentence. I'm trying to cut down on burgers and chips as I've started to put on weight. Now, obviously you aren't literally chopping a burger with an axe so it falls on the floor. Instead, you're taking that physical concept of lowering something to the ground and applying it to an abstract amount. You're reducing a number, bringing your weight down to improve your health. The physical metaphor completely drives the grammar here.
So here's the absolutely crucial point. Every single time you use the word down in a phrasal verb, it branches out from just one of these 5 core categories. We've got the literal movement in the direction of the ground, the sensation of heaviness causing difficulty, the act of putting something on paper, the reduction of a number or amount, and finally, stopping an activity completely. Once you actually have this mapped out in your mind, I promise you, the entire English language becomes instantly more navigable. Let's look at how these actually play out in real life. These next examples highlight the metaphorical weight of down, specifically that feeling of heaviness which causes real difficulty. Our source gives us 2 just perfect scenarios here. First, we were weighed down with luggage, so we couldn't run to catch the train. Or I was loaded down with books, so I took the bus home. Do you notice how the word down instantly makes you feel the physical struggle? You aren't just carrying luggage, you're being actively pulled toward the earth by it. It's heavy. The word down injects this vivid physical reality right into the sentence, making the difficulty perfectly clear.
Now let's look at a slightly more abstract concept. Note down. The definition here is to put something on paper or an electronic device, especially something someone says so you don't forget it. For example, the source gives us, just note down the main points, not everything the lecturer says. Or, I'll note down your phone number, or else I'll forget it. But why down? Think about the metaphor for a second. Ideas, spoken words, they're invisible, right? They kind of just float in the air. But when you write them on a piece of paper, you're giving them physical weight. You're literally pulling them out of the thin air and pinning them down to the desk in front of you. It's brilliant.
And that builds right into our final categories for down, reductions and closures. Say you have high blood pressure, you might take tablets to keep it down, actively pressing back against a force that wants to rise. But the absolute most extreme version of down is total finality. Gravity has won. The source gives us 2 pretty stark examples here. The car factory has shut down, and 2,000 people have lost their jobs. Or that nice Italian restaurant in town has closed down. What a pity. When an activity completely stops, it hits the floor. It's closed down. It's just a highly visual way to describe the end of something.
Section 2, business communication with over. Okay, let's look at an email from our source document. This is from a colleague named Hamad to his coworker, Jessica. Listen to the distinct, professional flow of this request. He writes, Jessica,
Could you please read over Bethany's latest report and just look over the figures in the appendix? We can go over it together tomorrow. Then I'll add our comments and hand the whole thing over to the sales team. Thank you, Hamad. Now, did you catch that? In just 3 sentences, Hamad uses the word over 4 different times to completely structure an entire business project.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the chronological workflow of over. Think about it. First, Jessica needs to read over the report, reading something from start to finish to find mistakes. Then she needs to look over the figures, meaning just quickly examine them. Tomorrow, they'll go over it together, talking and thinking about it to ensure it's correct. And finally, Hamad will hand the whole thing over to the sales team, giving the final product to someone else. Are you noticing the underlying metaphor here? Over implies an arc. It's literally a bridge. It's moving a project from start to finish, from person to person, just spanning the gap until the task is totally complete.
Section 3, over in everyday life. All right, here's a voicemail transcript provided in our source material, and the tone is entirely different now. It goes, "Hi, Mom. I'm staying over at Aisha's tonight. She's a bit miserable because she didn't win the tennis championship. I'm sure she'll get over it soon, though. She also fell over and hurt her knee quite badly. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye." So again, we're seeing this tiny word doing incredibly heavy lifting in 3 very different rapid-fire ways. And this brilliantly illustrates the flexibility of that arc metaphor we were just talking about. Let's decode it. First up, staying over. This means spending the night somewhere else rather than going home. You're bridging the gap of the night at a different location. Second, get over. Aisha is disappointed about losing the championship, right? Well, to get over it means to recover from a disappointment or an illness. Just imagine a giant emotional wall in front of you. You literally have to climb over it to move on. And finally, the very literal fell over, falling to the ground and hurting a knee. Just like a tall tree losing its balance, her body made a physical arc right toward the floor. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ask yourself, what other prepositions are you using daily without even realizing their hidden metaphorical weight? We've just seen how down uses the literal force of gravity to explain everything from closing businesses to writing notes, and how over uses the concept of a physical bridge to describe everything from project management to recovering from a bad tennis match. Guys, language isn't random. It's built on these beautiful physical metaphors. Keep an eye out for them, and I guarantee you'll understand English on a whole new level. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.